Good evening, folks, and welcome to FMA Discussion. This is episode 502, and today we have the pleasure of having Sifu Dwight Woods. Why? Well, I find him very interesting, and also much credit due. If it was not for him, there wouldn't be FMA Discussion. Um, as a aspect of respect, since he was the pioneer of doing online Facebook, I should say, interviews live when Facebook had a live aspect to it. Before we had to go to be live. I asked him, and he graciously said, "Sure, do something similar to mine, except within the FMA lens." So again, folks, if he had said no, I wouldn't have done it. That's just how much respect for him. So yeah, we wouldn't be here today if it were not for him. So just think about that. Anyway, what are we going to talk about? Well, FMA. Let's get his lens on a few things. His group, I love JKD, Jikundo, sorry, and all the dynamics in there. Fascinating. We'll be talking about that. And lastly, JKD. We'll get his insight on that. I mean, I think, gosh, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but 40 years maybe grew Dan. He'll correct me, but it's got to be something like that. Something. Probably more. But without further ado, here he is. And if you're watching, smash that like button and tell us where you're watching from. Was I right on the years or close?
Yeah, 41 this past July.
See, I would
Yeah,
okay. That
yeah.
41 years.
hmm
Wow.
Yeah, I started with Inasano when I was 4 years old.
Yeah. But you were, I mean, I knew you were young when you started like flying out there and you were on the airlines, right?
Yeah.
And
hmm
yeah,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Yep. I abused my flying privileges. Um, it's funny. My traveling partner and I, Ron Reagan, we were in Denver earlier this year, and Sifu Inasano looks at Matt Stumpf and his partner Jen, and he goes, "Yeah, these guys have been, um, they've been to like 15 different states doing seminars." And Matt corrects him and says, "No, it's 24."
24.
24 different states. Matt and Jen have traveled to do Inasano seminars. So I went back to my hotel room and I counted, and I am up to 15. I've been to 15 different states over the 40 years to
That's
do.
still even 15.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. And we were in Oklahoma a few months ago, and yeah, that was my third or fourth time being in Oklahoma with Inasano.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy.
Because he's 88
Yeah, he turned 88 this year.
and he's still like hitting the pavement. I mean, God bless. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, he's still doing his thing. We were there. Ron and I were there in 2 weeks ago, but he had done the New York seminar, and then he wasn't feeling well, so they told him, okay, well, you get the week off because he had to go to Australia. So they didn't let him work as usual
mm,
and then get on a plane and go to Australia. So we stayed and trained with one of his seniors who led the class, right?
no.
And the cool thing, so I was telling you off camera about being involved in these ongoing Facebook discussions, right? So one of the discussions right now is about um, playing percussion, right? Did Bruce Lee play percussion in his classes, right? And so the guy put up a picture of me and Asano, and what this guy doesn't know is he has no idea. So 2 weeks ago, in the Monday morning class, I got to jam with Alex Acuna. Now, Alex Acuna, if you know anything about um, Latin jazz, if you know anything even about straight ahead jazz, right, then the name Weather Report will be something you know about,
Oh, weather report. Absolutely.
right? And if you know about Weather Report, then you'll know about Birdland, Okay, their seminal tune, right? Well, Alex Acuna is the drummer for Birdland. Okay, I get to jam with
With
him,
That's awesome.
right? Because I think he's a purple or a brown belt in the FMA class at the Inisano Academy. So I get to play with him
Yeah.
because more often than not, before class starts, like people get there. I mean, sometimes people get there like 45 minutes early, and there's a whole ton of percussion instruments out front. So we get to jam, and for a lot of people, it sets the mood, right? It gets the juices flowing and what have you, and then we just segue, easily into class, right? So yeah, so I get to jam with him. I jam one time. Um, I didn't recognize the guy, and he's a blue belt, so I figured he was just like a novice guy that they let play along until he started playing, and then I'm like, he is no novice percussionist. His name is Euro Zambrano, and Euro Zambrano most recently was on tour with Shaka Khan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So
right.
these are not small time. I mean, these are
No,
accomplished
no.
musicians. I
when
mean,
when when I met Euro over a year ago, I think at that time he was playing with Stevie Wonder, but he was on tour most recently with Shaka Khan. But then the main guy for me when it comes to percussion at the Inisano Academy is a guy named Michael Dubin.
Michael.
And Michael Dubin, um, he might not have the the name clout that Alex Acuna has. I mean, well, he's not as old as Alex is, anyhow,
Mm.
right? But Michael's history as a percussionist for me is legendary, right? And so one of the coolest things that ever happened when I first got to know him is he told me that he relished being able to to help me with percussion because my videos, like my Kali videos on
Yeah.
YouTube, had helped him so greatly when he first started studying.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Right?
Yeah. Nice trade off. Wow.
So yeah, so that was really cool. Really, really cool.
So 88 still doing it. Wow. 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 I mean, jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
So before we go into you meant I couldn't help notice you mentioned about belts. So the academy is currently doing belts
Yes, they have a belt system for the Filipino martial arts only.
only. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. They
Okay.
don't have a belt system. I think, well, the kids have a belt system and the kids cross train in everything, right? So the kids class is like an MMA class. But when it comes to the belt system is not for the entire academy. It's just for
Gotcha.
the
Just for
MMA.
FMA solely. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Was
yeah.
that something that was been integrated somewhat recent, or it's been some time now?
Well, to be honest, I don't know how long ago because until Ron invited me to start traveling with him, um, I hadn't been to the Inasano Academy in a number of years. So I really can't say how long. But
Okay.
I suspect it's been a while though, because when I look around at the people who were there, none of them not there. I mean, these are people who've been there for quite a while.
You're seeing
So
some upper belts. Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm seeing people that I've known, like Tony Palermo and guys of his longevity and what have you. John Maidman, right? All those guys.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of FMA, what have you been doing as of late in regards to that? You still, I mean, I'll say, I know you're still teaching. Anything
Yeah.
new that you're focusing on as far as FMA is concerned?
Um. Well, fortunately for me, um, FMA, I use the term colleague because,
Yeah, that's okay.
in fact,
We don't
in
care.
fact, so the other day, right? The other day we had this thing going on about the different numbering systems, right? And because what I discovered is that at the Inasano Academy, one of the things that they have done is they use a numbering system so that all of the odd numbers come from the right side and all of the even
Yeah,
numbers
yeah.
come from the left side, right? And I was like, oh, that's interesting because I had never thought of it that way, right? And so we had a big discussion here in Miami because for us, this thrust has always been angle 6,
Mm.
right? But at the Inasano Academy, 6 is over here, is the backhand thrust, right? So whatever, right? And I was like, well, this is 6 in the Villabril Largusa system, and that's all that matters.
That's all. So that's what's been of most important and relevant what I've been working on. That's 6, in fact.
Right? Okay. Yeah. But if it's Villabril Largusa, that's all that
That's it.
matters.
That's it.
I'm kidding. No, but listen, I got to tell you this story. So, we went to Stockton
Okay. Oh, you want to
this year
stop
also.
then? First
Yes,
time?
yes. First time in Stockton, right? Because I mean, how can you miss it? Inosano back home, Inosano in his hometown. So we went to that one, and I saw live and in person. I know him from 1983. Do you know who David Hines is?
Oh yeah, his weapon collection is off the charts.
Okay, so I went up to introduce myself because he is one of my childhood heroes,
Yeah.
right? So I go to introduce myself to David, and he says to me, he goes, "Hey, you still doing that Villabril stuff?" And I'm like, "I'm not certified in Villabril Largusa." He goes, "Oh," he goes, "Oh, okay, you still do good." I'm like, "All right." So then during the seminar, Sifu Dan calls me up to demonstrate, and I think he said bring somebody, and Freddie Jin. Now I don't know if you know who Freddie Jin is, but
Don't.
Freddie Jin, I first met him in 1983 again because he was part of the Kali Academy demo team,
Okay.
and they came over. They came over one time to do the demonstration. So I know Freddie Jin since then. So Freddie Jin volunteered to demo with me. So I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven. David Hines paid me a compliment. Now I'm demoing, right?
And you got Freddie Jin.
I'm in Stockton, California. You understand, right? At a seminar hosted by Bahala Nation, Bahala Not
Oh
Nation,
yeah, yeah.
right? Okay, right. And I'm demoing with Freddie Jin for the first time in my life because Freddie and I had never, right? So then later on, the black belts, the black belt kids who from the Inasano Academy who had come up to Stockton, I was talking with them, and one of the girls says to me, she goes, "Yeah, you got that Villabril vibe going." And I'm like, "What? Yeah, yeah, right."
But for her to notice that.
But it gets better. So that's on Saturday. On Sunday, this before the seminar starts, this guy walks past me, and his cap, on the back of his cap, it says VLS, right? So I'm like, okay, because I recognize that as Villabril Largusa system, right?
Okay. Okay.
So then when he's coming back the other way, he stops in front of me and he goes, there's at least 2 Villabril people here.
You're getting it from
Right?
all walks of life.
Okay. And the only reason that people say this is because my dear departed friend Neil Colliff sent me the video of his private lesson with Cass Magda
Okay.
in the Villabril Numerata. And because I studied that video, decades later, people think that I know what I'm doing.
Could be.
But me, I just tell them, no, just check with Guy Chase. That's what you got to do.
Wow.
Because for all things Villabril Largusa, I refer to Guy Chase.
Guys, yeah, yeah. I remember having him on, and he seemed well versed. Yeah,
That
yeah,
guy, that guy is super awesome.
yeah, yeah. Wow, interesting. So now, I mean, look at all those. I mean, you got to go to Stockton first time. You
Yeah,
get called on the demo. You're getting
yeah.
recognized for your Vilbril skill by a 12-year-old. And you got Fred Ginn jumping out with you. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that's fantastic. I've never been. I've heard, obviously from covering, numerous shows on here and Stockton coming up.
Mhm.
It sounds, I mean, the birthplace. It sounds fascinating. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. And I was talking to Cass, and Cass goes, "Okay, Dwight, you gotta at least go to Leo the street because there's a street that they named after Leo Heron,
Okay.
right? So Ron and I made sure to go to that. Next year, because we are going back to Stockton, of course, but next year, what we're gonna do is because the kids from the Innisano Academy, they did it and they put the photographs on Facebook.
Okay.
I'll have to find out what it is, but it's the cemetery where many of the old escrimadores are buried.
Are buried. That's
Yeah, yeah. So Heron's there, Sarmiento's there, Lacoste is there. Um, uh,
Angel.
I think so. I think Caballos is there, right? Jack Santos, all those
Jack
guys.
Santos. There's a name that man.
Yeah, yeah. All those guys are buried there. So that's that. So I mean, we might even fly in a day early, right? And for anybody who might be encouraged to go to the Stockton seminar in 2025, here's what you do: do not fly into San Francisco and cross the bay. Because if there's an accident, a thing that takes an hour and a half takes 4 hours,
You'll be there for.
right? So don't do that. Instead, fly to Sacramento. Fly to Sacramento and rent your car, and then drive down to
Okay. For
to
those
Stockton.
who would like to attend.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that is so. All right, well, that's obviously that was incredible as far as what's new in your FMA world. Um,
Yeah, well, but here's what's always new for us is that the art of Kali regenerates itself. Like for me, I would say, Dean, on an almost weekly basis, because I, the way my brain works, one of the best things that ever happened for me was to be introduced to Filipino Kali by Dan Anasano.
mm,
Just the idea of so in Miami we call it we have a lot of different expressions that we use, but so one of them is Kali is the art of the thing and the opposite of the thing, right? Because there's the inward, there's the backhand, there's the high, there's the low,
okay,
right?
all right,
You
I see where
know,
you're
but
going.
then, but then it also forces you to think about what the in between,
The in
because in between,
between,
yes, in between inward and backhand is the overhead.
yeah,
In between high and low is the middle. You see, so then, right? If you go, well, when it comes to politics, are you on the right, the left, or the center?
how timely, well played.
Right? See, but what does Kali tell you? Kali teaches you that there's good stuff that comes from the right, there's good stuff that comes from the left,
Yeah,
and balance is found in the middle. Balance is found in the center.
mm,
You see? So you could use that, right? That martial arts lesson to guide yourself, right? In politics if you wanted to. I mean, I would, because I'm not political, right? But I'm just saying, you
I'm
could.
just saying you could.
You
Just
could.
saying you could at your local Christmas party. You could.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
That's. What do you think? Okay, I do like that. What do you status quo in the community? I mean, like, I know you're knee deep in JKD, the group there. You're running a Wednesday night, a Friday night, but what are you seeing status quo? Are you happy with status quo in FMA community? Are you?
Well, listen, I've said this to you before, that sometimes I feel I feel like an impersonator, because I did a video maybe a couple of years ago that said why my shoot, now I can't remember. It was either why my JKD is Kali tinged, or why my Kali is JKD tinged, right? And it's because, for me, for me, similar to how Inasano and others have expressed it. So one of the Facebook discussions that I'm involved in is a quotation from a magazine where Inasano says, "In my Kali, there's a lot of JKD." And then in JKD, there's a lot of Kali. And so people are up in arms because um,
Oh boy.
the possessive adjective my isn't in front of JKD. It's just in front of
Mm,
Kali, right? So I'm like, well, first of all, it's a freaking magazine article. Who knows if the guy reported it correctly or not?
yeah, in the first place, right?
Okay, but people are also, the barrage of anti-Inasano, right? The Inasano detractors, as I call them, they're always looking for the
There's something
smallest thing,
to
right? Yeah,
adhere to and just.
right. And this is an interview that took place. Gosh, it's got to be at least 40 years ago. So it's like, who the heck cares,
I know.
right? Who
It's
the heck cares, right?
40 years. It's like something similar had an FNA discussion. Knife came up again and all that, and the Atienza incident, what happened 22 years ago, the bouncer got brought up again. And I'm like, guys, this is 22 years ago, and you guys are still referencing this and talking about this. It's just crazy.
Yeah,
But then you're talking something like 40 years ago. I mean, it's
yeah,
just.
yeah. The reason why I said it is because I don't. Sometimes I feel like a Kali fraud because I don't keep up with the status
Oh, you don't
quo
keep a status
in
quo.
in the Kali
I
world.
don't know. I wouldn't say fraud. Matter of fact, I would say sometimes you're probably doing yourself a favor, because what's happening is, this is what I see FMA discussion. I see it on a daily basis. And a lot of it comes from over there and some here. And I got to be honest, it's what comes in a group. So before anybody attacks me, I am giving a critique from you, Chris, critique versus criticism, right? I'm giving you full credit for that one. That I'm seeing a lot of content coming from over there now,
Yeah,
and a lot of it is kind of what some would refer to as play, or what I mean. So I wouldn't say fraud. I say you might be doing yourself a favor. Yeah,
yeah. Well, I credit our good friends Mark Stewart and Mahi Paulunia for
yeah,
introducing me to the idea of FMA evolving into FAMA,
that's right. I remember that was a
and,
great
right?
podcast.
And FAMA being exported and therefore re-imported
Yeah.
into the Philippines, right?
I'm telling you though, it's freaking like you're seeing. I'm like, and it's on a blend. It's like, and of course, not giving
Yeah,
credit.
yeah,
Yeah,
right. So to me, Kali is intensely personal, right? Intensely personal for me. Um, I would not be the JKD practitioner that I am without haven't been influenced by Filipino Kali.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
There's no way. I wouldn't be, because see, Jeet Kune Do is not the art of understanding hand and body motion. Kali is.
Mm. And you would attribute that obviously because of the weaponry.
Yes. Right? You see? Okay. Look, I have like my good friends, G. Anthony and Rhea Joseph. So they're my instructors in something called Dao Chuan Fa, TCF, the system, right?
Okay.
And but they also trained at the Inasano Academy for a while, and they trained primarily in the Kali class. Why? Because the FMA was the only thing that they saw which related to the empty hand concepts of TCF, right?
Mm.
Yeah. So one time I'm training with them in their garage, right? And they're like, Dwight, you want to get this thing? They go, think of it as a Floretti. And I go, oh, so you mean do it like, and they're like, exactly. And it was an empty hands thing, right? But it's the whole idea of a single pass, a single. Let me see if if I remember it correctly. Multiple hits in a single pass.
Okay. All right. Like first. Okay. First. Okay.
Right. Okay. And so the joke between the three of us, you know, whenever we get to talking about something, I go, well, it's the Floretti, right? So, yeah, right. So we have a saying in the TCF, between the three of us in the TCF world, that my TCF has a lot of Kali in it, right? And yeah, so again, without Filipino martial arts in my life, I would not be not only the JKD practitioner, but I would not be the martial artist that I am today. It wouldn't have happened. There's no way. I'm just lucky that my brain is wired in a way that helps me to make sense of everything
Yeah.
through Filipino Kali.
No, that's awesome. That's incredible.
It's as simple as that, right? So anyhow, I forget what your question was.
No, 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 no. We're perfect.
Right.
What do you? Why are we on the bottom still? And this has come up before. In other words, we've been around before. BJJ came in the States, the flourishing of MMA, and it just seems like, as far as popularity or exposure or schools, we're just still on the bottom. And why do you think that is? I mean, why?
Because okay, there's different levels. There's different levels of answer for this, right?
Okay.
One of the answers is this: Kali is too spiritual to become popular.
Okay.
Right?
Spiritual the aspect, the spirituality
Yeah,
aspect of it as
it's
far as
too
popularity.
spiritual
Okay.
to become widely popular. Now, what's the spirituality to the UFC? I'm not saying that there isn't,
Right.
but is it evident? You think that's what makes it $1 billion company? The
No.
spiritual aspect of it? No way. No.
Seeing somebody flying across the ring, beating
Yeah.
somebody up.
Right. It's the entertainment value.
Yeah.
Right? It's the entertainment value. Now, do we have competition in FMA? Yes, right? Most notably, I guess, in the face of the Dog Brothers, right? Eric
Dog,
Nelson
yeah, the dog.
and
And
Mark
that's
and those
come up
guys,
before.
right? Okay,
The competition.
but would mainstream America be attracted to that as much as they'd be attracted to something which we could say has its roots in wrestling? Because remember, wrestling is the oldest form of human unarmed combat.
Contact.
So
Not just
there's so
contact, right? I mean,
yes,
yeah.
so there is a whatever portion of the brain it is where all the centuries of existence reside, right? Even in a present day human. Wrestling brings out a thing in people. The idea of two people in combat against each other, which is why Russell Crowe's Gladiator is probably the movie for which he is best known. Just this idea of human competition. So when the UFC first came about, it was gladiator combat.
Or the first couple, right?
Yeah, it was one man steps in.
Yeah, one man
right?
enters,
one man enters, or whatever that saying is. So UFC got a foothold in the American psyche, and so alongside it,
I can't
right?
disagree with that. Yeah, the psyche, right?
Yeah, alongside it came not alongside it. Out of that grew the BJJ.
Because that when that started coming in, people are saying like,
So
"Wow,
that-
man, that
yeah.
little guy just tapped out that huge guy."
Yes, right. So the proverbial 97-pound weakling thing, because remember, in the 1960s or whenever, Charles Atlas used that ad to build an empire. The idea of the little guy getting the best of the bigger guy. Right? Okay. So I think that and when I said that Kali is too spiritual, right? What I mean is it encompasses so much, all the aspects of humanity. You see?
Yeah.
And so real Kali will touch on, what's the best way to look? So for example, right? Here in Miami, we have a thing. We don't do dagger training until you've been around for a while. Because one of our sayings is this: there are no beginner techniques in knife fighting. Okay? Because even in the hands of an unskilled person, the blade can still inflict maximum damage.
100.
Right? So for me, I don't treat the knife fight, I don't treat the blade fighting, okay, as I don't treat the blade fighting as something that you put literally and figuratively in the hands of a beginner. Now that, to me, that is a spiritual concept, because that is a concept about the preservation of life. Who in the UFC is talking about the preservation? No, they're too busy making money, having fun, and kicking ass.
Yeah.
That is not Kali. Kali preaches,
I see you're going with this.
right? Kali preaches a reverence for the damage that you can do,
especially edge
sometimes
weapons,
even with a simple stick.
Even a stick, yeah, hard,
right? You've heard the story. In Asano tells his story, right? What's your first class with some of the old escrimadores, right? They whack you in the leg. Why? So that you never doubt the effectiveness of the art.
Yeah.
Right now, imagine if you use that to raise your kids. Okay, Bobby, I'm telling you, there's electrical current in that outlet. Do not mess with it. Right? You tell your kid, this thing called fire, this thing called flame, you do not want to turn on, right? You don't want, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what do? You use that old escrimador approach, and you let your kid get shot.
Yeah.
You let your kid get burned. No. So Kali teaches you how to raise kids.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, depending, right. If you were exposed to an old master, like the example you just mentioned, Right.
And plus, too, my understanding is let's call it traditional or historic, traditional or historic, it was family systems. So it was within your little group, your little family group, as
Right.
opposed to FAMA, right? Which is not, it's in a school and you got a ranking system, whether it's a colored belt or it's a colored sash or what have you,
Yeah.
right? So again, and I know there are going to be people who will be like, what the hell is this guy talking about Kali and spirituality? Well, that might be his experience,
Mm.
right? That might be his experience. I'm talking about my individual experience, what it's done for me. When you hear stories about Flora Villabril not having a training partner, being up in the mountains and using visualization, right, to train himself. And then he comes back down for the fight,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, no man can beat me. Because why? Because he saw himself winning,
Right.
right? And then you're going to tell me that that's not teaching you, that's not modern day spirituality where they talk about visualization
The
being
visualization, I mean, for sure.
right. Uh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I mean, so you talk to a lot of the successful leaders, right, in business and finance or whatever, and what you'll find is that there is an inner component to what they do,
Yeah.
right? So maybe it is a new wave way of looking at the ancient art, right? But my understanding, when Sifu Dan showed us what they call the 12 areas of Kali, right?
Mm.
And area 12 is usually
That's
area 12
the,
is
the spiritual component, right?
right. What I call the metaphysical aspects of the art, right?
Mhm.
And so 41 years ago, that's what I was told. Now, I'm not an original of anything, but I just know that works for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course there are going to be people who will have a difference of opinion, right?
No, no,
There's
but here's
all
it. This is what you're saying is an American interpretation of Kali. Maynard, he did mention that Fama. So actually, you're correct in that. So it was earlier before you jumped on. But this is wow. This is fascinating. We're okay. So we kind of covered. I think everything you're speaking on and the competition, right? Like, yeah, we have the Dog Brothers at this extreme over here, but on a line, there's very little coming. I mean, yeah, you got weak half stuff like that where there tends to be a little more gear, softer sticks, generally speaking, in there. But even with that being said, even to the extreme, I don't think there's enough of it. Now, taking into consideration, you can go to any average household. You mentioned MMA, even your average household wife would know that. I just think we're not getting out there as far as infomercials and that. And it could be due to there's just no competitive aspect, you know?
well, um, it always helps. Okay, it always helps if there is competition to the thing that you do because that will attract the crowds, that will attract the attention if
Mm,
there's a competitive aspect to it. So people have talked about, one reason why Jeet Kune Do suffers in popularity is because, well, there's no competition. People will say all the time, well, how come we don't see Jeet Kune Do in the UFC, right?
yeah.
Well, nobody's ever going to ask that about Filipino martial art because there's no weapons aspect to it, right? And then this idea of playing with sticks, okay? People would be like, well, why would I want to play with sticks when I can carry a firearm?
I know. As far as like
Okay.
what they construe as,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
or
Well,
gun
not
culture.
every. Yeah. But right. Exactly. But not everybody carries a firearm,
No.
and there are people out there who will carry some kind of an edge weapon, just in in everyday life. So the idea of learning weaponry, and imagine if we tried to teach from the get-go with the edge weapon. How long are you going to last before? How long is that going to go before you have some kind of accident?
Yeah.
Right, so
Or
we
people
have to have
walking out the
something,
door,
right?
right?
Yeah, we have to have something. So okay, so we used the blunt weapon first, right? um and I think that for some people, because the Filipino martial arts are not native to them, and are not the idea of, I'll keep it to this country. Weapons is not the idea of the average American. When the average American thinks of self-defense, they don't think about training with a rattan stick. That
Mm.
is an acquired taste. Okay, that's an acquired taste. Obviously, it'll be different in well, for one, it'll be different in the Philippines,
Or
because
other
be,
Southeast Asian countries,
right,
right?
because their cultures are different, and this is their native art. But one thing that has to be, I guess, appreciated could be the word, is that, look, I'm not qualified to talk about it. I was born in Trinidad. I grew up in Barbados, right? So I'm not really qualified to talk about the impact of the Filipino culture in America. I can only talk about the impact of Filipino martial arts on me. I can only
Right.
talk from my perspective. You know what I mean? So I might end up getting myself in trouble, because it's like, oh, well, he does he think he's an authority or whatever? I am an authority on Filipino Kali when it comes to what the art has done
You
to and for
personally.
people.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that's it. And so, to wrap up the idea of the popularity is that people just don't think about that.
I
Now,
mean, yeah. And we're gun
it,
culture. I mean, like you said,
right.
even if you don't carry a gun, you still associate just by the mere history, the association of firearms. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
many would look at a
yeah.
stick and be like, "What do you mean?" Yeah.
But if if more people understood that the idea of beginning with the weapon is so that ultimately anything you pick up can be a weapon. And even if you don't pick something up, you still learn to use the empty hands.
Yeah.
So that the empty hands are trained by the weapon as well. Now, that is a revolutionary concept.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking outside the right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a revolutionary
And
concept.
also, it becomes legally defensible. You're looking at the legality aspect too, right?
Yeah. Right. So again, it's an art that has so much going for it, but it suffers from the the inability of its practitioners and or its leaders to put it in front of the community at large. It's an
Yeah.
acquired taste, right?
I think and I think you're right. I think, like, I looked at the efforts I've tried, others have tried, and I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think it's an acquired taste. I just don't think it's ever just going to be something. Yeah, I mean, you got secondary, tertiary programs in school, but I'm talking about, like, if you, like, we identified on a show one time. I think, as far as brick and mortars are concerned, I think it was in the teens across the U.S. as far as schools that just taught FMA. You know, all
Oh
you know.
yeah.
I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
teens,
Yeah. Yeah.
not even one per state. I mean,
Well, I mean, we I wonder if we could do if we could do such a study for pure Jeet Kune Do schools, because I
oh,
guarantee you
that I bet you. I
that
bet you it's not high. I bet you it's
that
not
might
high.
not that might not even get into the teens, you know,
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Well,
adjunct programs or
right.
tertia or like that.
You know what's interesting is that if we did a study of schools that have Jeet Kune Do and Kali,
Yeah,
now that might be in
I
might
get you. I bet you're getting
that might
now.
be in the hundreds,
Yeah, yeah. I think that's fair. That are doing
right?
both. Yeah,
That might be in the hundreds,
yeah.
you know, and well, since I'm one of them, I say more power to them.
I think I agree because if it's spreading, getting the word out there, it's better than nothing, right? I mean, like a better
Yeah,
safe say. I mean,
yeah. But it is it is I don't even know if it's a problem, man, because I think I think ultimately we just do what we can to the best of our abilities,
yeah.
you know, and let the chips fall as they do. Um, we can, and again, for me it's always a JKD Kali thing. There, it's never not a
Mm,
JKD Kali thing, right? So in the same way that Filipino martial arts are not infinitely popular, right?
right.
JKD itself is not infinitely popular either, but one of the most popular martial artists of all times
Yeah.
has a connection to Filipino martial art as well, because he was probably the first person to put it on the big screen and capture the admiration, right, of millions of people.
Yeah. With a
You
stick,
know,
right? Yeah.
right? Exactly. Okay. So it's a quandary, but I'm not here. If I knew the answer to cracking the code,
Nobody's,
I
everybody's
would
kind of
share
said
it with everybody.
similar to you, the competition aspect, the special niche. I mean, and much like yourself, nobody had, you know, like a solid
Yeah,
remedy.
but you know what, Dean? I would say I would advise, you know, to for us not to be or become disheartened, because the stuff that has been put, the Filipino martial arts stuff that has been put into law enforcement agencies,
Mm,
right, around the world, has done so much good.
that's good, right? That's a great point.
You know what I'm saying? It's done
Yeah,
so much good, right? So you know, maybe it calls for us to look at success in a different way.
yeah. As far as like how many, instead of
Yeah,
looking at how many schools we got in the U.S.,
right.
no, that's a
Yeah,
great point.
right. I mean, because I mean, I know people who I know several individuals who, as a result, in the aftermath of 9/11, for example, right, in the aftermath of 9/11, took their Filipino martial arts training into the security
Yeah,
world,
right. Yeah. No,
right,
I know, and did well, and did well. Yeah,
yeah, and did a lot of good
yeah.
with that, right? So, um, I I don't know. Ultimately, man, it's
No, I think you have to. I think we need to look at other areas where we've had success, and I think that's a great one there. Law enforcement. You know,
yeah,
what
yeah.
what do you? As far as the ensemble, do you teach all 12 areas? Do you eventually get to the 12th area, or do you highlight more than others, depending your audience? Or
Um, so I don't teach. I would say I don't teach projectile weapons or throwing weapons, right? Right? You know, we don't have we don't have, well, I shouldn't say that we don't have room for the bow and arrow, but no, I don't. And
You're not teaching spear?
no.
That would be a fun mass attack exercise. Have you ever, like, if you can get like foam noodles and make them where they could actually go, tape on, give them some weight, you guys could be like,
Yeah. Yeah, I was recently I was thinking about spear and stuff because there's for me, and I don't have it anymore, but for me one of the most influential videos that I saw in the early days was the Kali Academy demo team. I think it was at UCLA. I'm pretty sure it was at UCLA, right? And there's a portion where Jeff Imada and Chris Kent
okay,
go spear versus staff.
spear. Oh, that must have been fascinating.
It's just classic, man.
Oh, that must have been
It's just classic,
fascinating.
right? So every once in a while we do pull out the staffs and but we don't spend too much time going. I mean, you guys just did. We don't spend too much time going staff versus
I
staff.
know, but it's
Right?
grown on me. It's really grown on me. Like before, I used to look at it like
Yeah,
the traditional martial art weapon.
yeah,
Not that that turned me off, but my lens on it was, oh, yeah, it's what those traditional guys do. They pick up a staff, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, I tell you, I've got such a better appreciation for body movement. Like,
Yep,
like I
yep.
tell you, who's Datu Kelly? Like
Hmm.
his whole thing on staff, and when he used to mention this, it's not that wasn't listening to him or didn't believe him,
Hmm.
hardly. But when I started picking out and playing with it, oh, jab, cross.
Yeah.
I mean, like you actually see the mechanics. You know what I mean?
Well,
Wait, straight blast. No, I'm just
yeah, yeah. Well, I'll tell you something else, right? When it comes to staff and body mechanics, you should see it when Cass Magda does it for Sila. I
mm,
didn't. The first time I saw it, I didn't get it. I was like, "Oh, this doesn't make it." Until um, it was earlier this year at his Sila camp, right? So again, right? Again, my appreciation for Silat comes out of what Filipino Kali did for me,
see, my
right?
appreciation for Sea Lot came out of me because I always looked at I always looked at it with curiosity. Like it was always that thing over there I was looking at, but I wouldn't go touch it. I was just like always kind of just watching it and seeing it. And
Yeah.
then finally one day, talking to Burton, I kind of was expressing my lens as I'm doing with you right now, because you should check out my program because I take a lot of this stuff out. I'm like, you know what? You never led me wrong to this point. Sold.
Right.
And I tell you, I'm so glad I did because some of the stuff it deals with from the pure self-defense lens is phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Yeah. I again, right? I take my cues from the people who I consider to be the authorities, right?
Yeah.
So when Ben Largusa if Ben Largusa says Silat is Kali and Kali is Silat, then
Mm,
I'm good with that, right?
you're sold.
I'm not gonna argue it or whatever. And
Yeah.
I just know that um, the two of them, again, to a certain degree, are infinitely blendable.
Oh, I totally agree with that.
Okay,
Absolutely. Yeah.
infinitely blendable. And again, right, we would probably get in trouble with the purists, but as an Inasano guy, it makes perfect sense to me. This is one of the things um, that he passed on to us,
Mm,
right? And and it is somewhat JKD relevant as well because Bruce Lee is quoted as saying, "If you understand motion, then you understand styles. And when Bruce in the 70s, you're too young to know this, but in the 60s and 70s, when you said style, what you meant was art, right? So Bruce Lee says, if you understand movement, if you understand motion, then you understand the different arts.
Mm.
Well, like I said earlier, for me, Kali is the art of understanding hand and body motion. Right? So Bruce Lee said what? Until human beings have 3 arms and 3 legs, there's only so many ways that you can move.
Right.
Right? Then there's geometry. There's diagonals, there's horizontals, there's verticals, right? There's circular motions, there's straight line motions, and what have you. So to me, if you're involved in the study of an art which addresses and approaches all these things, you are going to end up being well-rounded.
Yeah.
So now this goes back to me for the art of Kali being holistic. You're not just going to be physically well-rounded, but you're going to be mentally and emotionally well-rounded as well.
Problem solving, like not flying off the handle. I mean, like, yeah, absolutely. Other facets of
Okay.
life. Yeah.
That to me is what encompasses the art of Kali. Now, maybe I'm just not a tough enough guy that all I'm into it for, right, is the fighting ability. Maybe I'm just not tough enough. Right? But
No. I think it's the beauty, as you said.
Huh?
What it does for you, your personal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Because look, sometimes again, easiest thing in the world to do is to lose your cool and get into a fight. Right? I take public transportation every week. I am telling you, the easiest thing in the world to do is to get into a fight.
Today, especially and you're on public transportation, Miami.
Okay. All right. Hey, we have a wonderful transit system. What are you talking about? We really do. We have right. I mean, look, I've told this story many times before. When I get on the train, I go out to the train station early because my station is 2 stations away from the terminus where the train starts. So I'm heading north, but I go out early and take it south so that I can be the first person on that train and I can pick my seat. Okay? Right? Now, if something happens on that train, do you think that I'm going to be able to stand up and hit my Jeet Kune Do Bai Zhong, my Jeet Kune Do fighting position, and in a moving train, right, go, side kick to the knee and finger jab to the eyes, whatever? You think, right? Or in a sitting position, can I pull something off from Kali and Silat more readily?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we got to be realistic about this. Well, I was going to say nobody is a bigger fan of Bruce Lee than I am, but that's not true.
I don't know.
No. That's not true. I don't have rooms in my house dedicated to Bruce Lee.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I don't have, I have, I think I have 2, if not 3, figurines or whatever. I don't have 100. Okay. Right? So there are bigger Bruce Lee fans than I. But if we're going to be realistic, then we have to be. And there are aspects to what a lot of people consider to be pure Jeet Kune Do that are not going to work for you if you're sitting on the train.
Yeah, like self-defense, right? Certain self-defense scenarios.
Yeah. If you're sitting on the bus and what have you, it ain't going to happen if you have a limited interpretation of what self-defense, of what combat is. So So yeah. So for me, you were asking me about what's new and what have you. Well, it's regenerative every week because let's see, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sometimes even Tuesday or Thursday. Um, I like maybe I'll run scenarios through my head and what
Mm,
have you. There was a time a few weeks ago. Um, sometimes you have to share your space on public transportation. So I might be sitting at one of the seats that has a table. It seats four at that table.
yeah.
So if a guy with his suitcase, but he's not an airline traveler, he's a guy that takes public transportation with his suitcase.
Yeah.
If you get what kind of guy I'm talking about. If he comes and sits across from me, I now have to be on the alert
Yeah.
because a lot of these guys who wheel their suitcases from spot to spot where they spend the evening, you don't know what they carry.
No.
You don't know what their mental status is, right? So, in a scenario, now, fortunately for me, when I'm on public transportation, I usually have my weapons bag with me. And if I don't have the full weapons bag, I usually have the telescopic baton on me, right?
Yeah. You got
Because
something. Yeah.
right, So again, when it comes to the discussions in which I get myself involved, sometimes I have to stay quiet about this whole Jeet Kune Do thing because the purest Jeet Kune Do, it's all about empty hands combat.
All
Okay,
right.
which has its place. It has its place, but anybody who knows even a little bit about real combat knows that empty hands ain't going to do it for you all the time.
Yeah.
So when they go, oh, Bruce never studied weapons. Why does Dan Inosanto feel the need or whatever? It's like, what the hell, man? Right? It's like if Bruce didn't do it, then Dan should not have done it.
Should not have like. I mean, not only that. I mean,
Which means then that if Bruce didn't do it, Dan should not have done it. So Dwight certainly should never have
or
done it,
anybody under Dan should certainly have not
right?
done.
But the thing is, the first time I went to Bruce Lee's, gravesite, which was 1980, I sat down and he and I had a talk, and he goes, "Hey, man, you know, if it's fine that you have come out here to pay your respects to me, the deceased source of Jeet Kune Do, but you should go check my guy, the living source." So 3 years later, instead of going on July 20th to Seattle, I went to UFC Irvine and I met Dan Inosanto.
Right.
Because,
There you go.
yeah, because I had a little episode at Bruce Lee's gravesite, and he said, "No, man, go check out my boy Dan."
Good. There you go. And it's
That's
been
my new story.
there you go. And it's been 41 years later.
41 years later, and I have to give credit to Ron Reagan Goldstein because Ron is the one who said, "Hey, man, let's go out to SEALAC camp." I was like, "Are you
Yeah.
sure?" He was like, "Yeah." I go, "Okay." Ron has reinvigorated my love and appreciation for Inosanto. Not that it was dying; it was never it was never at a stage where it was dying. It's just that I had not been going out to LA,
Yeah.
right, like I used to in the past. But Ron's like, "No, man, we got to do this." Right. And so yeah, being able to hang with him at this stage of his life, it is as fascinating as it's ever been.
At 88, I mean, I can't
Yeah.
imagine. I mean, like, and you've seen
Even
decades of
even
transitions.
oh, So we're in Atlanta. We're in Atlanta a few months ago, right? And so he calls me up to demo something because here's what he'll do, right? He'll call me up if he feels the need to have somebody show what he calls the classical style, right? Which is a euphemism for old people.
Yeah. So
Right?
we're gonna go classical
Right. So
now.
if I want to show you how the old people do it, right? Okay, here's Dwight. So, but in Atlanta, he quipped, right? He said this thing which he I'd never heard him say before. He goes, "Yeah, Dwight's been with me for a long time. Dwight was studying Kali before Kali was cool."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So we have a great time on seminar with him,
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
and it is heartening to see the younger generations that are out there, right? But I do have a peeve with them because they're not seeing Prime Inasano. So I always recommend that as much as they can, they gotta find sources for people. So like Chris Kent, for example, right? Chris was on the Jeet Kune Do dialogues with me last Friday, right? And in the lead up, in the days leading up to my talk with him, it hit me that Chris Kent is still around because he is significantly younger than his classmates in
Right.
Sano's backyard, because there were people. Chris was 17, 18. The average age of his classmate at that time in 1973 was twice his age, 34, 35,
Oh,
36
wow. Okay. I
years
didn't.
old.
Wow. Okay.
So a lot of those guys are now gone, but Chris is still around. So um, if a guy says, "Oh yeah, I've been," and I say this all the time, "I've been with Inasano for the past 15 years." Okay, so you've been with Inasano since he was age 73.
Yeah.
Mm, you might want to ask somebody, how much have I missed?
It's like illustration. A lot of these guys who trained with him in his twilight years versus when Tony Dago and Yuli Romo met him in the mid 70s. I mean,
Right? It's the same
so
thing.
yeah. I mean, yeah,
It's the same thing.
100%. Right.
It's the same thing,
You know.
right? So what is that? That teaches what? Appreciation for your elders. Now you're going to tell me that Kali doesn't teach appreciation for your elders? Come on,
Oh no, no, one.
right? Come on. So I don't care. I don't care who is like, "Oh, what spirituality you talking about? It's a fighting art, whatever." No, man, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's the
No, it's
same way
definitely
that Ed
more than
Parker,
that.
right? It's the same way that Ed Parker said to Inosano, you should check out the Eskrima. And Inosano goes, "What? Oh, you mean the stick fighting?" And Ed Parker says, "Nah, Dan, there's more to it than that."
Yeah.
Right? It's the same thing. It's
Yeah.
the same
One.
thing,
Yeah.
right? So whatever. Look, everybody can have their own take on it, and everybody has the right to their own take on it. But if you happen to see it a little bit differently from somebody else, fine, fine. That is the way of the world. There's no right or wrong to it. Different people have different opinions. Leave it at that. You don't have to go telling somebody, "Oh, no, 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 you're wrong," right?
Yeah.
My way is the right way. Your way is the wrong way, or whatever. How can how can how can your way be the right way when everybody doesn't follow your way? If
It's
your way was the right way, okay, everybody would follow it.
it's ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah, those are people that they're just they're tough to converse with. It's just yeah.
Well, yeah, I use them, right? I use them, especially the internet Facebook crowd. I use them to help me to learn how to best articulate my own arguments.
Yeah,
You
it's
see, that way it becomes a training exercise.
a
And
training
there,
exercise. Well, I have to deal with
yes,
these people. It's only going to improve my
it's
quality
it's
of
a
dialogue. Yeah,
yeah, it's a training exercise. And so I am never frustrated by it. I am never frustrated by it because it's, first of all, it's Facebook.
it's an
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. I know there's about 3 billion people around the world who are Facebook users,
yeah,
right? Okay. Yes, I am aware of that. But how many of them pay Facebook to have an account,
yeah, exactly.
right? Zero.
Zero.
Okay. So you don't make a living off Facebook, right? Until you start paying Facebook. So if you're one of those billions who doesn't pay Facebook, why are you taking it so seriously? Why are you treating it as if like you work at Facebook, right? And whatever it is that goes on, no, you got to prove your point to people, and you got to this and you got to that.
Oh, I love that when they tell you what you have to do or should. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 right? And even more so if you happen to be the moderator of a group on Facebook. So let me see. What does it take to be a moderator of a group on Facebook? Oh, you start a group yourself and you make yourself the moderator. Done.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right.
And
Okay.
then from that point on, you will be dealing with
Yeah. Yeah. You start a group and you make yourself admin.
yeah,
Right. So, I mean, come on. Right. So, yeah. So maybe that's why there's a high percentage of narcissists on Facebook because it's that easy, right?
it's
To
that
put
easy to be
yourself,
right.
yeah, it's that easy to put yourself in front of hundreds of people. Yeah,
It's true. You start a group and it grows and grows, and before you know it, oh,
yeah,
I work
yeah,
thousands of people, and I
yeah.
control.
Right. I mean, I got pissed. I got pissed 6 years ago at a guy named Steven Crowder because of something he said about Bruce Lee. Next thing you know, I'm a podcast host.
See, so now you look back, and you're like,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, this is a good way to segue into that. So obviously, many people know. If folks, if you don't know, Seafood Dwight runs a podcast. Obviously on JKD, he has his group. I love JKD, which is 23,000, 24,000,
Yeah. 23,000, I think.
twenty three
Yeah.
thousand, which is got to be the biggest JKD group, right?
No, no. JKD Talk is bigger. I think JKD Talk is about 59,000 or whatever.
J.
But yeah, JKD Talk. But
Maybe,
yeah, but you know, I don't know anything about how to work the algorithm.
I don't
Okay.
either. That's not my wheelhouse. That's not
Yeah.
my,
I don't know anything about how to work the algorithm.
yeah,
Right. So I've never embarked on a strategy or a campaign to
same here.
grow membership or what have you. No,
Same
I,
here.
I,
Same
I
here.
haven't. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe one day. Right. But yeah, and I fell into that. So I guess I am probably the most identifiable face
I
at
always say because
I
I've never heard JKD talk. And who's the lead? They're not. There's no podcast that runs that correlates with that group, right?
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah,
And so that's why I say so maybe my face is more recognizable when it comes to the
yeah.
online JKD world. Maybe I don't know, right?
I think
But
so.
but
I think
it's
that's fair.
it's it's largely because of the podcast, right? And but I try to point out to people that I did not start I Love Jeet Kune Do. I came into that thing when it was already, I think, 3 years old or what have you. It didn't have anything to do with me because I was not a Facebook person. I used to spend 6 minutes a week on Facebook um, back in the mid 2000s when I had my school,
Mm,
and I would put my blog, my WordPress blog, right, you could put on Facebook.
Oh, okay.
So, right. So I used to write that blog Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it would take 2 minutes to put it up on Facebook. So that's how I spent 6 minutes a week on Facebook. In the old days, I had no interest in it
Yeah.
as a tool for growing your reach or what have you. I still have no interest in it.
I, if it
Right.
wasn't
But
for ours, I wouldn't even be on here. I'm
yeah,
the same wheelhouse as you are. I don't, yeah, could I grow the channel? Could I? Yeah. Have I? It's been done organically because I don't have the time or the interest. It wasn't my goal really. You know what I
well,
mean?
I think you if you're going to do that, right, then you're engaging in the running of some kind of business. If you're going to start spending money on Facebook to boost, or
Mhm.
Instagram, right, or any of them, if you're going to start paying Facebook money to boost your post, you better be thinking in terms of return on your investment.
Yeah. Well, you're just throwing money. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. So unless you have money to burn, right, then if you start paying Facebook, you better have a strategy behind that. And that's when you cross over into the business aspect
Yeah.
behind what you're doing. So
Right.
yeah, so you can, unless you're, like you're like a Joe Rogan or something, right?
Yeah. And I just, I like for me, it was filling a void. Like
Yeah.
there was nobody that was covering FMA, so it was really me just void. I never was looking at this as financial gain. I'm
Right.
not
Yeah.
certain, and by no means am I not certain there's gains that come from this. I'd be the first one to admit, absolutely, your name gets out there, 100%. Yeah,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it was my initial reasons were never financial.
Yeah. No, no, that's a different approach, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's like
And
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and I mean, I don't deny anybody,
Oh yeah, those who do it, hats
right?
off to them, and that do it well and are
Yeah.
able to really. I mean, yeah, absolutely. It takes time and energy, and I mean, they're at it. You know, what I mean, you can't deny the workload that they've are putting towards that on a daily basis. I
Mhm.
just can't. I'd rather go try. I just can't be bothered. Just yeah, But speaking
Yeah.
on that, you have these like I was before we started the show. Like you got some serious just these two dissenting like the conceptual versus the purist and JKD and this. Like I remember you used to spar with a guy from Oklahoma, Bob. I,
Bob Landers.
yes, I remember
Uh-huh.
like that a few years ago. Now though, I'm seeing, and I don't know the man. He could be a good guy. I don't know him. So folks that are
Hmm.
listening, please, I don't know, but I see Roberto Torres' name come up a lot, and I'm guessing he's more in line with the purists, Ted
Yeah,
Wong.
yeah. Bob trained in Oklahoma at Terry Gibson's school, and
Okay, the late great Terry Gibson.
The late great Terry Gibson. So Terry was an Inosano guy, and Bob trained there. And in his own words, it's like he never saw the Jeet Kune Do. He thought, well, if I just keep training, at some point, how all of this is Jeet Kune Do will make sense to me, and that never happened. And then he got introduced to, or he came across, however, Ted Wong. And that's a
Mm,
similar story for Richard Torres, right? There were people who were on the Inosano path until Ted Wong came along, and for them, Ted Wong became the truth of Jeet Kune Do. So that is an ongoing debate, and so I mean, I'm not recommending that anybody do this, but if you see my Facebook interactions
mm,
with Bob Landers, my Facebook interactions with Richard Torres, my Facebook interactions with Paul Bax, and those three are all Ted Wong influenced. So they would be what you consider the original Jeet Kune Do camp. But if you watch my interactions with them, we're always having fun with each other because they are not pro Inasano. I am,
Right.
right? So that's all it is.
So it's not obviously. So if I look at it, see maybe the aspect of malice, malicious. You're saying it's not. It's just too.
No,
It's like here,
no.
here. But for the folks, can you describe, for those who may not know, conceptual, born at the academy, the integration of different systems, and all that. The purists, they're coming from Ted Wong's, so basically boxing, Wing Chun, fencing.
Um, yes, yes. To right. So the Ted Wong, and I'm not saying this is his claim, but these are the things that are said. Um, gosh, pro Ted Wong. He was Bruce Lee's last private student, and he also has the most hours of
Mm,
private time
which is
logged with Bruce Lee. Okay, right? Now, the anti Inasano people are like, well, he went out and confused people because he studied Silat and he studied Muay Thai and he studied um, Kali and he studied this. And when he was on seminar, people would advertise the seminar as Dan Inasano, Bruce Lee's top student,
right.
but then he would teach these other
Others.
arts,
Okay. Okay.
right? And so recently somebody used the expression that through an Inasano seminar, people were led to believe. And I was like, what the hell do you mean they were led to
Led
believe?
to believe.
Right? Because what you're doing there is you're taking agency away from these people. I was never led to believe a goddamn thing by Dan Inasano. When I
Yeah.
went to see Dan Inasano in 1983, it said he will be teaching Filipino Kali. I'm like, it's Dan Inasano. I'm going to go rock with him.
Yeah.
Right? I was not confused. I didn't go thinking, oh, well, this must be the Bruce Lee stuff. No, because at that same camp, um, Larry Hartzell and Tim Tackett were on the roster teaching Jeet Kune Do.
It's quite a.
So I could have gone to them,
Yeah.
right? But even as a kid from what Bob Landers would call a third world country, I knew inherently, intuitively, that Jeet Kune Do was not a product. It was a process that you had to go through yourself. So you know what I did? I spent a week with Francis Fong in Wing Chun and
Okay.
a week with Inasano in Kali, right? Because the whole intention was to go home and see what I could do for myself, use my own brain, right, to put stuff together for myself,
Right.
you know, right? But as
Hmm.
the story goes, I fell in love, and so I kept going.
Right. And
I
you kept
kept going
going,
out. I
obviously,
kept going out to LA, yeah, as
under
much as I
lens of
could.
okay. Is there a benefit where you don't actually, I mean, pick a faction, but is there an absolute benefit to seek somebody under an Asana lineage and under somebody under Ted Wong lineage?
To do both,
Yeah.
yeah,
Are there
yeah,
people that do that? Is that
yeah,
widely
because
done?
well, I am one of them to a
Mark
certain degree,
Stewart?
but not to any huge degree. But this is what I'm saying, right?
Okay.
When Ted Wong came to Miami, Dan Inusano said to me, "Now you're going, right?"
Oh, no.
I go, "Of course." He goes, "Good, and you're taking your people, right?" I go, "Of course." He goes, "That's my boy." You see?
Mm.
Now, that would not happen on the other side.
So somebody,
At a
yeah,
TED,
someone
at
under
somebody
Jane,
who's a somebody
gotcha,
who is a Ted Wong instructor, right?
would not say, "Hey, oh, hey
Would be
guys,
would I
here's
they would
Dan
be
Charmaine."
hard pressed. They would be hard pressed.
Interesting.
I'm not saying that it could never
It
happen.
couldn't
It
happen,
would
right?
never happen, but I don't think they would be as readily interested
Interesting.
as we would be, because that open-mindedness, that um, acquiring of empirical experience is what Dan Inosanto teaches, which is
Right.
why.
So he's just living it, yeah, right?
So that's why he went and studied with 30 something different Filipino
Yeah, I know.
guys. That's why he went and studied Muay Thai with. So Muay Thai is probably the thing that he has the least amount of
Let's
instructors.
say just
I think he only
Arjan
studied with two different
Chagall,
people,
right?
right? But Ajahn Chai is
Arjan, yeah, yeah.
his main source, right? In Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, he studied with all the Machado brothers,
Shadows,
right? In Penjak Silat, he studied with
the
all the
Sawanda, the
most
Doors,
of the Detours brothers,
the
right?
Doors,
Sawanda, with Jaffrey,
Joffrey.
with uh, De Jong, with Plink, right? Because that's his thing. His thing is, if it's possible for me to take the pressure off myself of being in charge and being the teacher and just go and be a student, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so he would. I asked him one time, I go, okay, I go, well, but how do you learn it? He goes, oh, you just come back to your school and then you share with the people what you're learning,
Fresh way. So it's fresh on your
right?
mind, and now you're.
I go, yeah, which is what he told me to do,
Yeah.
right? When I was leaving LA the first time, he says, okay, look, nobody from your part of the world has ever come out to see us. So if you want
Mm,
to get this, when you get back home, try to teach it to somebody. So
very,
that's how it started.
very precious. Like,
Yeah,
huh? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah,
That's how it started. So he has always encouraged his students to be open
that's
minded,
fantastic. I mean,
to
he's a
look.
living, breathing example of still being
Yeah,
a student and going out there. And I mean, so if he's doing it, I mean, that's yeah. So
and he's so generous. Like he has referred to me, right? So I told you a story about the top level percussionists who are students at his school.
yeah,
He has referred to me as one of his drum teachers, right? I don't know. I don't know anything. I can follow a beat.
yeah,
That's it. Okay. But on remember, I brought him to Miami for 17 years to
yeah.
do annual seminar. My girlfriend got me, I think it was my birthday in 1996, that she did a collection and they bought me my drum set, right? And so um, for 10 years, when Inosana would come to Miami, we would do drumming stuff, right? So he calls me one of his drum teachers.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, there's not a goddamn thing that I ever taught him. But
That's funny.
that's how generous he is,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And so yeah.
As a human being. Yeah,
I've heard not.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I've
right.
heard. Wow. What
But yeah, so that's why Paul Detours, Salem Astley, Surachai Surasut, Francis Fong, and others. That's why these people developed seminar careers as well,
Oh, it was
because
dedicated. Oh my
because
gosh, he brought him
yes,
in. He made
because
them. Yeah,
Dan and Asano would say, hey, you guys should really check this out. Why? Because he's being generous. It's like, I don't want to study under these people and my students not be able to appreciate that. So not only would he open up a class at his academy for these people, but he would also, right, suggest to people that we bring them in for seminars.
No. I think he set the whole trend for that. I mean just that freedom to go train with others,
Yeah,
and where you're not, it's not indentured servitude, and like you said, like he definitely. I mean, he made people. I mean, like let's just face it. I mean, like what Mark Wiley did with his books for the old timers that were still alive, for the Westerners to go over there and train with them. Dan Alessandro did it here by bringing them into his academy.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
for
nobody
damn,
can say
sure.
it ain't that.
Right. And that's why so many people get so annoyed when the Inosano detractors try to throw that in his face, that he somehow went he how dare he go beyond Bruce Lee, when Bruce Lee is the greatest of all time. So you're obviously disloyal if after Bruce Lee died, you became known for something else other than Jeet Kune Do. You became known for this stuff, right?
It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, and to me, the most ludicrous aspect of this, Dean, is the whole thing that he confused people. That he confused people. It's like, so when people went to an Inosano seminar, the ability to think for themselves was somehow extricated.
Removed from them as soon
Yeah,
as they walked into the
it
door.
was removed from, yeah, right. So he led people to believe,
You led them
or
astray.
yeah, people became confused and what have you. I mean, it's just ridiculous, right? My good friend Richard Torres was pointing out to me yesterday. There's an old article, and the last 3 or 4 lines of the article say, at the end of the Jeet Kune Do class, it says something like, at the end of the Jeet Kune Do, the last segment of the Jeet Kune Do class was devoted um, to something and something, with the Filipino weapons. And
Mm.
he's like, yes, see, this is the proof that Inosano, right? That Inosano was mixing the Kali in the Jeet
See,
Kune Do class.
I got the proof.
Look at this magazine article, Dwight. Don't be a turkey. It says that the last segment
Uh,
was Inosano, right? But and I'm like, so what?
I know.
Right? So what? Because here's what we know. Here's what we know. Because we've heard this from people who were there. The JKD class, they would finish, and for like 30 minutes or so after the JKD class, Inosano would break out the sticks. Some people would stay, some people would not.
So
It was as
it was
simple
already
as
being
that.
introduced.
It was as simple as that. It wasn't this thing where, what I'm going to do now, see? With all these people who came from Bruce Lee's Chinatown school, I'm now going to confuse them by
Right.
putting 30 minutes of
At the
some
end of the
Filipino
class.
martial arts at the end of 60
Not
minutes or
during.
however how long, right? No. At the end. And some of them aren't even going to stick around. But the ones who do, I'm going to confuse the hell out of them.
That's crazy. Here's the thing, though. I truly believe if Bruce Lee had lived, whether it was a decade or 2 decades longer, obviously he was evolving JKD based on his experiences. You're trying to tell me he wouldn't have incorporated other stuff? He was already looking at wrestling and judo and this and that. Like, you're trying to tell me like he wouldn't have met like others and trained
Well,
with them?
I asked someone the other day, okay, so talk to me about Bruce Lee's kicking. Because the guy was saying that Bruce Lee's techniques came largely from Wing Chun, fencing, and boxing. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, well, explain to me his kicking. Because there's no crescent kick
Right.
in
And
Wing Chun,
yeah, okay.
right? Bruce Lee's sidekick is not a Wing Chun sidekick.
Yeah.
Okay. There is no what he called hook kick, what other people call the roundhouse kick. There is
Mhm.
no hook kick in Wing Chun. There is no reverse hook kick in Wing
Oh,
Chun.
yeah.
And Bruce Lee did all these things. So what the guy did was he says, well, he gave me the list of the Chinese names for those techniques,
Okay.
right? And I was like, yeah, so here are some Chinese terms. And if I understood what he said correctly, I might have misunderstood it. What he was thinking is that since we have Chinese terms for these kicks, that makes them Wing Chun kicks
By virtue of because of Chinese names.
because they're Chinese names. And I was like, oh my God. Well, one of the first things you learn about Bruce Lee is that he added, and I'll use the Chinese term, the Gua Choi to his Wing Chun.
The back.
There is no Gua Choi in Wing Chun, right? So right away, but again, maybe I misunderstood what the guy was saying. Okay, but having Chinese terms for something that came way after Bruce Lee. I don't even know that Bruce Lee was a big fan of using a ton of Chinese terms in his teaching. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. But if I ever found out that he didn't, I wouldn't be surprised.
But
I
he
would.
was watching. I mean, whether it was the interaction with Chuck Norris or him just watching other systems and just exposing himself to other methods. I mean, who's to say he didn't extract and incorporate, you know?
I look Bruce during his lifetime. Okay, because so for me, um, I can imagine or hope or wish for a bunch of things about Bruce Lee, but it would be projection and the use of presentism, right? He's not here. None of us know what he would have done.
Exactly.
But we
We
can
can speculate.
speculate. I think we can speculate
Yeah.
but when we speculate, because this is a phenomenon that I've noticed. Some people, when they speculate based on their desires for Bruce Lee, or even on the things in which they themselves became interested.
Mm.
So if I think Silat is cool, then I could speculate that Bruce Lee might
He
have
would have
got
trained with
into
the
Silat.
Thors, all the birds.
Right? You see, but if I base my speculation on what Bruce Lee actually did,
Yeah.
then I would have to say Bruce Lee wasn't going nowhere to study with nobody. Right? They would either have come over to him, right, or he would have found a way to get access to their
To
stuff.
their methods.
Because Bruce Lee got access, with the exception of what studying judo with a couple of different people.
Mm.
I don't know too much about Bruce Lee going anywhere to study anything else with someone, right? But we know that he did avail himself of literal physical instruction with a few judo people. But Bruce Lee looked at boxing, um, had sources of information for boxing, had sources of information for jujitsu, for different karate styles, and what have you. And there were people he could have gone to study with, but he didn't.
Yeah.
His research, as they call it, was done at home to a certain
I think he
degree.
was such a savant. He was able just to look at stuff. And again, I'm speculating, right?
Mhm.
He was able to look at stuff and know what to incorporate, and had a lens and an eye, and
Yeah,
probably emulated it better than they were doing it.
well, in Asano and other people have said that he did have that ability to see something and pick it up, pretty easily,
I think, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which I mean, I get that. That's how, and I only bring this up because we were talking about percussion and because the guy posted a picture of me and Asano on the congas. I learned to play drums through mimicry. Okay. Like I told you, I got my first drum set in 1996 or thereabouts. Well, I had been playing drums for 27 years at that time, but I had never had a drum set.
Official like lesson.
Okay.
Right.
I've never even had a, a, a lesson from like Michael Dubin or anybody, but I could play by ear and I knew how to mimic
Yeah.
playing on a drum set. So when I sat, the first time I sat in front of a drum set, I could play it. The first time that I stood behind a pair of congas, I could play them because I had mimicked that stuff for a long time. I think my ability in mimicry actually helped me in Kali the first time I saw Inasano and
Yeah.
Asmagda move. Right? It's like, oh wow, look at that. You know? So as a kid who absconded with his mom's knitting needles, and they were my first drumsticks, right? You know, as a kid whose left knee was his first hi-hat cymbal.
Yeah.
Hey man, all right. So but that first Monday, it was Monday, July 25th, 1983. And I'm pretty sure it was double stick. And my mouth hit the floor
Yeah, I'm sure.
when I saw Inasano and Magda do their thing. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
You know? And
Yeah.
I didn't have the thought, oh, Bruce didn't do this.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you were just in awe of what you were seeing.
I was like, that's it. I get,
Yeah.
you know who had a similar experience? Rick Fay.
Rick Fay. Okay. Yeah.
Rick Fay, right? And Rick, because the other day, I gotta give these guys a shout out. So on Facebook, their page is called Plato's Cave, and
Plato's Cave. I think
yeah,
I've heard that. Okay. Yeah.
this is Pat Finley. This is Pat Finley out of Maryland, right? And so Pat, I think Pat started bringing Inasano to Maryland or Virginia or that area in 1982 or something, right?
Oh,
Really,
wow.
really early. Yeah. So he has a lot of vintage stuff. And so, but Pat just put stuff up periodically on his page. I see it and I'm like, this is so cool. I got to share it. So I send it around to as many of the different pages as I can. And I told Pat, I go, look, man. And he's like, Dwight, I don't care about any of that. I just put it up. I go, so is it okay if I put it up? But when I do, I always tell people it comes from Pat Finley
Right.
at Plato's Cave. So the other day, I put up stuff. It's Inasano and Jeff Imada doing a couple seconds. To me, it looks like a couple seconds of Serrata and then a few more seconds of Villabril Largusa. And it went crazy. It really caught on. Everybody loved it, right? Everybody loved it. And why am I telling you this? What the hell? Oh, shoot. Why am I telling you this?
Oh, because off the we were originally talking about how was Bruce Lee being a savant could have just while he didn't go out to certain
Right.
people, just through observation and study was able to basically perform
Yeah.
and add to
right. And then I was talking about drumming.
and drum and you tie drumming into how you mimic right.
Yeah. Shoot, I can't remember. I had a great point that I was going to make, but it'll come to
It'll come.
It'll come to me midnight tonight. I'll wake up and I'll be like, God damn.
You can put in the comment section, guys. This is what I was meant at the so mark.
what was it I was gonna say? But anyhow, I put up the video and somebody said something and somebody said something and whatever. Which is what people do. Whatever, right?
Can't help themselves. Right?
No, they can't. But oh God, this is embarrassing. It was so classic, though. It was so classic, and it led to a whole bunch of things. You know, the vests that they were wearing, and you know, who else has those vests, and what have you. The era that it was from, right?
Nostalgic,
All this,
right?
yeah. Oh man. Let me
Yeah,
tell you. Let me tell you. I mean, and it's from that era, from that UCLA demonstration I
yeah.
was telling you about,
You
right?
know?
Um, just fantastic, fantastic stuff. Those demos that they did. I would like to know if they ever gained new students
From
from
those doing those
from
demos,
the
I bet you
because
they. I bet you. Yeah.
I hope so. We never did, and we used to do demonstrations for the Thai Songkran Festival, the Thai Water Festival,
Mm.
right? So we used to do demonstrations for the Muay Thai community. We used to do demonstrations for the Miami Filipino American. Yeah, I forget what. Yeah, but we used to do demos for all those guys, right? And we never got any students for it because
I think that's how they got into
we
like.
suck. We suck at demonstrating because our idea of a demo was to just show how we train,
Yeah.
right? You know, as opposed to like a taekwondo demonstration where they'll bring the little kid out and the little kid will use his taekwondo to beat up the big kid, and then the crowd is entertained.
Yeah. As
You know,
opposed.
so then it's like, oh yeah, I want my kid to be able to do that,
Yeah.
right? Idiot us. We would just come out, we would just train.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. The kids thing. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely having the kids some shape way involved in part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
but when we were talking earlier about the popularity and what have you, right? I was thinking, if you compare the popularity of like a taekwondo school,
mm.
right, the popularity of an average taekwondo school, because I don't think that the UFC hurt them in terms of enrollment,
No, I think their business
right?
model. They have
Yeah,
the ultimate business model.
yeah, right. And you know what became part of their ultimate business model over the years was the addition of the Filipino sticks.
Well, look at Paulo Ladra. Apollo Ladra, he original Taekwondo practitioner in Baltimore.
Yeah,
Now he's an adjunct to a lot of those schools, man. And
yeah,
so, yeah. No,
right.
yeah.
So
I mean, right. First of all, yeah. One of the ways, of course, is being a secondary tertiary program to existing traditional schools, or
right,
for sure.
that is one way, right? I mean, and I think didn't some of the Kempo schools like do that as
Oh,
well?
Remy. Oh my God, he killed it.
Yeah,
Remy got into. That's why there's a lot of Kempo practitioners that have modern East background.
right, right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, man, look again. Whatever it takes, right? As
Oh
long
no,
as
no. That's I mean, no. I
as long,
mean, he.
as long as you do it with honor and integrity,
That's
you know
it.
what
I
I
mean, as
mean?
long as it's done with honesty and integrity,
Right,
100%.
right.
I got one for you here. Okay. Many people say, I love your take on this. Bruce Lee was the first mixed martial artist. What say you on that?
That Bruce Lee was the first mixed martial artist.
Yeah.
You mean in terms of looking at other systems and incorporating ideas and maybe even techniques from other systems?
I think that's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
No, no, he
Okay,
wasn't.
let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Okay, the Kaju Kembo people are on record. Kaju Kembo, I think that idea of taking stuff from different arts
Yeah.
would predate Bruce Lee by 10 years.
So Kaji Kempo, say
Kaju
circa
Kembo,
late 50s.
1956, I think.
They were from in Hawaii. They were kind of
Yes.
scrapping. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. The KA is from karate. The JU is from judo and
And the
jujitsu. The KEN is from kempo, and the BO is from boxing. Yeah.
so
So
they
the
were
Kaju, yeah, the Kaju
interesting.
Kembo people, right? Now, I think also in terms of modifying what you originally studied, which is what Bruce Lee did, because we know that when Bruce Lee went to Seattle, right, not having trained the entire Wing Chun system, he started to teach a modified version of it. Well, I don't think he's definitely not the first person to do that either. I think there are people who modified their Okinawan karate when they went to Japan.
Or when the Americans came.
Right. Okay. and I dare say that the mixture of styles, right?
Yeah.
The mixture of styles of kung fu in China itself. I think guys were putting stuff together and creating their own new style long before 1966, 67, and Bruce Lee and what have you. But perhaps in the Western world, right, or even in the Western world on the mainland,
as far as the States, okay,
right, maybe Bruce Lee was the cultural phenomenon that that opened up people's minds to these ideas. Plus, he was a child of that generation, of that era.
Yeah.
You know, there was a social explosion, a cultural explosion in the 1960s, and Bruce Lee was right there in it. The whole, let's call it, for lack of a different expression, the questioning of authority, right?
The overall question,
right? Okay, the questioning of authority, the examination of the system, you know, and maybe the opposition of the system as it had ruled the people, you know, maybe that kind of revolution, there was that kind of cultural revolution. And so for Bruce Lee to come along and go, well, you know, just because I might have been trained in a Japanese system doesn't mean that I can't look at a Korean system.
Yeah, I mean, right.
At a Chinese system, that I can't whatever, you know. And so with that idea, which is why it goes back to the JKD purists, right? Bruce Lee literally says there's no Chinese way of fighting. There's no Japanese way of fighting. So they think that because Inosanto studied Filipino martial arts, that he's saying there's a Filipino way of fighting. What they miss out on, right? What they miss out on is the lesson, because these are not public lessons. These are not lessons that can be transmitted en masse to a crowd of seminar attendees. Now, you can give them the idea. You can give them the idea and send them off after the seminar on their way. They are supposed to go home and integrate these ideas for themselves, because Dan Inosanto is never going to tell you, right? Okay, so here's ice pick grip. When you slash horizontally like that, that is also your empty hands horizontal elbow. He is not going to put that in front of you and tell you specifically, so you must do this and understand. No. No, we got that in the early days. That's not happening anymore, because so many people have been taught and trained by him that they should have this automatic integration, right? Cemented in their brains, in their way of thinking. You see, so because the dilemma for Inosanto and Cass Magda, I credit Cass with really opening my eyes to this. The very soon after the seminar thing started, Inosanto's dilemma was, how the heck do I teach 100 people?
That's what I understand from talking with you and Burton when things,
Yeah.
because he had to teach to the mass.
Yeah,
So 5
right.
count went to 3 count, sombrada.
Well, not just that, right? Not just that. But how often have you and I, in this time that we've been talking, how often have you and I used the adjective personal?
Absolutely.
You cannot be on, you, maybe some people can relate on a personal level
It was 100
to
people.
100 people.
Yeah. That's incredibly challenging.
You can't do that now, right? So last Saturday, in our training session, so we're doing breakout and break in, break up and break down, right? So the sombrada into the hubad and what have you. So at one point, when we break up into the hubad, right, and so I'm here and I flip up and then I move my hand over here. So Ron says, "Oh, like the cadena," and I'm like, "Whatever." And then we got into a discussion of it, and I'm like, "Okay, Ron. So for me, cadena real, right, the quick switch is a way of moving from the inside to the outside."
Absolutely. You're going from inside gate to outside gate. Absolutely.
Right? I go, okay. Now, notice that when we do the puño sombrada, and we are at this point, when I move over here, before I even move, am I inside or outside your arm? He goes, outside. I go, okay. When I move it, am I inside or outside? He goes, you're outside. I go, I move it again. Am I still inside or? I go, so I am always outside. I'm never going from the inside to the outside. Okay. And so we had this huge discussion. And ultimately, but the point I'm making is this. We ended up realizing that if Ron's own personal language for him to understand it is it's the cadena or it's like the cadena or whatever, then that's personal to him. But I cannot teach that as my language when
Right.
it isn't. But if for him to understand it, he's like, well, it's like the cadena. Good. But he can't expect me to teach his language.
Yeah. No,
See?
yeah.
So it's all
Now
this
times
big,
that by 100.
yeah, right? So 100 people have to make it personal for themselves. Inasano can't do that for them.
No, I don't think.
Right?
Who can? 100 per. I mean,
See, you see, so
that's
that
one thing
was
to do it. I mean, even 5 people that are different
right,
sizes, and I mean,
right, yeah. So that's where it's teaching what? It's teaching the importance of taking personal responsibility.
yeah,
It's teaching the importance of
personal time in your own journey.
right.
Okay.
You see,
Yep.
right? So then it's like, okay, it's like Bruce Lee said to Inasano, and Inasano says to us, right? So if I show it to you and you don't get it, it's still mine.
Mm.
You got to do what it takes in order to make it yours. Right? Okay. So what does that mean? Well, here's how, because when I get into Jeet Kune Do discussions with my TCF people, right? They're like, but Dwight, we can't find a Jeet Kune Do person that can tell us specifically how you do such and such. All this Jeet Kune Do stuff is so nebulous or whatever, right? So they always tease me about that. But I do listen to what they're saying, and I do learn from it. Because yes, sometimes in JKD, the ideas are so esoteric, right? Because what does Bruce Lee say? Well, it's about personal expression. Okay, right. But what do you do? What do you do specifically, right?
For a person, yeah, you got to
Right.
have some
You know what I mean?
ingredients. You got to
Oh,
have some
well,
ingredients.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well, it's different for every individual. So then you make a sign that says the truth in this style is different for every individual. Absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, whatever,
Mhm.
whatever. Right. But along comes Kali, and Kali goes, okay. So, and these are all Miami sayings, right? Based on stuff that I got from Inasano, much of it stuff that I got from Cass, because Cass, to me, Cass is the bomb when it comes to breaking stuff down, right? So we have the stages of combat: entry, follow up, finish. So now you look at your techniques. What techniques are good? What is the nature? What should be the nature of an entry technique?
Mm.
So what techniques? So take, for example, let's say in the Amara families, right? So we've got the figure eight patterns. We got the lobtic patterns. We've got the redondo patterns. We got the abanico patterns, right? Okay, so of those patterns, those ways of moving, right? Which ones are good as entry technique? Because that's the first stage of combat, right? Okay, now second stage of combat, follow up. So which of your techniques are good as a follow up technique after the initial deflection, right? Third stage is what? Closing or finishing. Which of your techniques, right? So take the abanico. The nature of the abanico, you can't kill anybody with the abanico, but you can certainly rattle their cage with it,
Mm.
right? So abanico might be relegated to the arena of follow up, right? But now redondo, whoop, whoop, especially with the heavier stick.
Yeah,
That could be a finishing
that could be
technique.
the finishing blow. Sure.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying? Right? So now, right? Now, take that concept of entry, follow up, finish. You can apply that to any martial art that you're studying. We got that out of JKD and Kali. For me, mostly out of Kali,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Now, here's another one. Learn the technique. So I like to kid that there's two or three versions of this, right? So the ones for the impatient people: learn the technique, put it into the flow, add the counter, add the recounter. Right? For the people who want to get good, it's learn the technique, practice the technique, right? Put it into the flow, add the counter, add the recounter. For the people who want to master it, it's learn the technique, practice the technique, functionalize the technique, right? Put it into the flow, add the counter, add the recounter. For the fastidious ones like me, it's put it into the basic flow, add the basic counter, add the basic recounter, put it into the intermediate flow, add the intermediate counter, add the
Oh my.
intermediate recounter,
Now you're
put
just
it
going
into
like
the
just
advanced flow.
gangbusters.
Yes, yes, because right, because because there's people like me who want to analyze this thing down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Which is
Simply,
which is okay. I mean, right?
well, because again, it's what it can become, and I'm going to piss some people off, I guess. Kali is also an intellectual exercise.
Hmm.
Okay, it is also an intellectual exercise.
Yeah. How can you?
Right?
I mean, you're constantly
Right?
evaluating, thinking, flexion. I mean,
Yes.
adapting, changing, transitioning. I mean, those are
Yes.
whole. You
Right.
know.
If you look, the concept of the flow, right? The concept of breaking the flow and getting back to the flow. I use that in my former profession as an airline employee.
As an okay.
Okay. Because now dig this, right? Every day you got to work your flight. So for example, when I lived in Barbados, right, we had in the beginning We had 2 flights that came south in the evening. The planes overnighted in Trinidad, and then 2 flights came back north through Barbados in the morning. Then ultimately that was consolidated into 1 wide body flight. Okay. So every day it's the same flight, supposed to leave at the same time. Well, if I'm training with you and I'm training you how to defend against my angle 1, if I do not place that angle 1 in range and on target, if I fall short, if I'm hitting the space between me and you, right, then you're never going to learn how to expertly defend against that angle 1 because
there was no intention. Right.
Exactly. I'm at the wrong range, right? So I have to have the proper intention, and I have to be accurate with what I do. Well, guess what? Even though there can be a tendency, I work this flight every day, right? Every day that you work that flight is a new day. That flight has to leave at a particular time. Yeah. So if 10:02 is the pushback time, right? If it pushes back at 10:06, guess what? You were not accurate.
Yeah.
You see? So every time I feed you angle 1, if I'm going to, I have to, it doesn't matter how many times before I have fed you that angle 1. Even if I put it on the receiving end, because what? Because Kali is not just about the giving, it is about the receiving. So every time that I receive, every time that somebody hits me an angle 1, if I ever decide, people have fed me angle 1 over 40 years, so, it's just an angle 1. Bullshit. That's when I'll get hit in the head and not recover from it.
That complacency.
Right? So Kali teaches you to not be complacent, which is something that you got to take to work with you.
Yeah.
You can't go. Imagine, right? That let's say you work for Elon Musk and that damn rocket stuff. Oh, well, we've sent rockets into the atmosphere before, so let's be complacent. Let's take an attitude of complacency in what we do. Let's say, right? It's like, I'm a cop. Well, I've been a cop for 25 years, so I know there's knuckleheads out there on a Saturday night. So I'm not going to really pay attention because, I've done it for 25 years.
Right.
Yeah, that's when you don't come home.
That's when you don't. Exactly.
Right? So again, forgive me, those who think that I'm too esoteric with what Kali has done for me. But I'm sorry, I cannot look at it any other way.
Yeah, but again, back to your personal journey. Your personal lens, interpretation. What is done as far as personal benefits? Everybody's journey is different and what they experience and what they get from it. There's no way you can push, say somebody, in other words, I look at it this way. So you got somebody that wants to do dog brothers because maybe they're overcoming some fear issues. They're working on dealing with some just fear, anxiety. So they're using dog brothers to kind of deal with that, right?
Right.
But then you got somebody who's trained Balenta walk because they're going through depression, it's getting off the couch, and it's keeping them off that because they're loving this. They're feeling they have a purpose now. They're enjoying it. You tell me which one is more valuable, right? So it's that personal, right? You can't say, the person that goes the dog brother route.
If you're a scaredy cat like me, higher consciousness through harder contact is not appealing, right? Let me tell you, I don't need to get hit really hard in my head without headgear protection to know that will mess me up. I'm sorry.
Wear the lightest. I'm gonna wear the phase original dog brother mask.
I'm probably just not tough enough, right? But I know. But in a similar vein,
Mm.
if I'm training and I get hit in the hand, the idea of stopping, breaking the flow, and going, oh man, no,
Mm.
no. See, so maybe I don't need to get hit in the head, but if in the regular course of training you whack me in the hand, I don't stop, right, to berate you for hitting me in the hand. No, because the learning is in the doing.
Yeah.
You know, the learning is in the doing. So that's another thing that Ron and I deal with all the time. When he and I are training together, like if he messes up, he wants to stop and start over. And I'm like, no, no, no,
Mm.
no, 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 no. You keep going, you keep going. You don't break the
You might
flow.
not have that option, right?
Right. Right. You
Yeah.
see, everything is seamless. And you learn, for me, through Kali, I have learned more and more about the connectedness of things, right? So when I worked in Barbados in a small, what we call a sea station,
Mm.
you learn reservations, you learn uh, weight and balance, you learn baggage service, right? You learn ticket counter. So you learn all the components that go into one ideal outcome, which is the successful departure of an aircraft.
Yeah.
When you move to Miami, an A station, guess what? There are no positions where needing to work all four of those things occur, because in an A station, you specialize. So when I moved to Miami, I went to departures. So the people who make the announcements and um, shepherd the fold onto the aircraft.
Yeah.
Because we never thought of them as cattle, okay? We were, no, 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 right? So that's where I worked. But because of the connectedness of the knowledge that I had, I was a standout in departure services because I could answer questions from passengers about other aspects,
Oh, because of your prior right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, because of my prior training. So you cannot tell me, right, that being well rounded as a martial artist, being skilled in empty hands and weaponry is detrimental.
Oh
Bogus.
no. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Bogus.
Oh come on.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, Bruce. So, Inosano, you're a traitor to Bruce Lee because Bruce never did the sticks. Shut
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Come
That no.
on.
That's just crazy. That's crazy. Yeah. And unfortunately, those who have that mindset or opinion, there's nothing you're gonna be able to do with them. I mean, that's just, you know what I mean. It's
Yeah, and this is the thing, Dean. I have no desire and no interest in changing anybody's mind.
yeah.
You see, because I'm not a persuader, right? I do my thing. If my thing makes sense to you, then you'll join with me, right? If it doesn't, good. I don't expect everybody,
Yeah.
right? In my years on the planet, there are some girls that I had a liking for who didn't like me.
Yeah, imagine that.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Right?
There were some girls
And
that
then there were,
didn't.
right? And then there were some girls who liked me that I was not interested in. So
You know. I know
right?
it's like it's just whole personal. Like, well, what do you mean you don't agree with what I'm saying or doing? I mean, what do you? I know this whole like subjective,
Yeah.
personal attachments. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I know.
Look, I'm not here to die on any hill, for anything, right? I learned a long, long time ago from Bruce Lee that martial art is about personal expression. And
Yeah.
if you claim to be a real follower of Bruce Lee, and you find fault in what one of his students did in his personal life, right? In his personal, if you find fault with what what one of Bruce Lee's students did, not in his personal life, in his professional martial art life, in terms of personalizing his journey, then you don't really understand what Bruce Lee was saying.
Yeah.
You
I
don't.
think there's a lot out there like I do, even though they're flying the flag or saying this and that. But I think there's a lot of this younger generation. I think, and again, I'm only drawing this conclusion or making a statement from observation, from
Mhm.
what I see and hear on social media. But when I look, in other words, when I look at this new batch of folks that are, or Jake, these up and coming, or they have a name, but when I compare and contrast to like you, Burton, um, Paul, I mean, just the older guard, the ones that came out late 70s, early 80s, Steve Grody, I'm seeing two different. It's not even close, in my opinion. I just, as
Well,
far as the innovation, like,
isn't that, Dean? Isn't that an extension of what's going on, generally speaking, in society?
yeah,
With
music. I mean,
with
it's like, oh, my,
well,
my
no,
song got a million downloads. They can't make an album anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah. Look, I get grief. I get grief on a regular basis because I refuse to turn my iPhone into a music player. My music, right, is on an MP3.
Yeah,
I have 2,500 songs on my MP3 player that are in constant shuffle rotation. Okay, I do not use Spotify. I do not use Pandora.
right.
Right, I do not trust any algorithm to curate my music for me. No,
Yeah,
I can do that myself.
right. No, no, I know, I know.
Right, so it's the differences between the different generations of society, the Y, the Z, the whatever the boomers, the what have you. I see that I see that reflected in the martial art world.
No, no, I think, but much to
Even
your point, I think it's across the board everything today. I mean,
right,
yeah,
right, yeah. So I look. So I talk to the younger folk. If the opportunity arises and if they're interested in
yeah,
hearing
there's in hearing you. Right,
right,
right, right.
right. If they're interested in hearing from me, right? And my advice is get in touch with those old timers.
Be such a service to them. I mean, like,
Okay.
what's your point? If they're seeing, like, for instance, somebody that is started following Dan around 10 years ago and they're doing the camps or the seminars, what have you, but they started when he was 78. I mean, I
Now,
mean,
now, don't get me wrong. Starting with Inasano
I mean,
at any age is better than not
yeah,
starting with Inasano.
but I think it
But
perfect,
but
yeah,
you still got to be
differentiate
realistic.
the
You
others.
still got to be realistic, right?
Yeah,
You still have to ask yourself, whoa, 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 whoa. This guy started teaching, right? Um, Professionally, I think it was in 1984. That was I think it was in
84.
84. But well, what I mean by professionally is like that's when he was due to renew his California teaching certificate,
Okay,
and that's when he made the choice to
to
not go
go
back
full time.
into right and to go full time martial art. I
So
think it was
40.
84. I could be so it's 40 years,
Yeah,
right? Okay, all right. So and now here's the other thing to consider. Okay, so he started teaching for Bruce Lee in 1967. All right, okay. So then there are people who trained with him in late 67. So let's blend 67 and 70. So we got a decade of people in the 70s. Then he kept training and teaching. So we have people in the 80s, we have
right.
people in the 90s, we have people in the first decade of the 2000s, and then and now we're in the third decade of the 2000s, and he's got students from all those eras, from all
Although
those
that was
generations,
insane.
right? And I show up 10 years into it, right? So I missed, okay? I missed 40 years.
Imagine.
I gotta ask somebody. If I want to get good at this, I cannot come in at this point to go forward when there's all this that I
That was
missed.
beyond. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that's a great
Right?
point. Like, I don't think they'll ever. I gotta be careful of this. In other words, I don't think they'll ever potentially reach their full potential unless they take your advice and they do take it upon themselves to do that. But what I find is many won't.
Well, look. So this happened to us in Oklahoma. Okay, so we're doing a thing with the umbrella, right? And Inosano says, I do it incorrectly because I no longer have the range of motion in my shoulders. Right? And he says, and a lot of people copy me, but they shouldn't because I'm old. Right? Okay. So he says that, and then he sends us off to do the drill. So I hold back for a second because I want to see what happens.
I know. That'd be interesting.
Okay. They still mimic him.
I'm not even surprised.
After him saying,
I'm not surprised.
I do. And not only that, after him saying, right, and then calling me up and pointing out, you see how this, you see how that, you see how the next thing, you see how this other thing, but I do it wrong. They missed the lesson.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Okay?
I'm not.
They missed the lesson.
Yeah.
Because there's not enough people out there drumming it into their heads. No. You came in at a point where this is what was going on.
Yeah.
Right? Look, but I'll tell you this. And again, shout out to Ron Reagan because he's the one that made it possible. But when we started going back out to to LA, he was doing things that the current group, they are masterful in it. Me, I'm looking at and I'm like, what the heck is this? Right? But here's what happens. After a few times, if I'm any good, guess what? I better be able to pick up on it. You see what I'm saying? Otherwise, I suck.
Yeah.
And what is that? That's just because it's now arranged a little bit differently. So instead of it being A, B, C, D, maybe it's D, B, A, C.
Yeah.
But it's still the same four things. So if I'm any good, if I really learned well from him, I should be able in a short period of time to go, whoa, wait. Oh, you put that in front of that, and then you put it on this side, and then you do this. Okay. Bang.
Yeah.
Now I got it. And that's what happened.
Yeah, but I don't see I don't know. I see folks more vested in emulating, like the example you just brought up, as opposed to, you know what, I'm going to find my own way. I'm going to take what's given to me, but I'm going to, and I don't see enough of that innovation. I just see a conveyor belt coming down,
Well, it unfortunately, what has happened is that, and again, I'm just limiting my comments to the world in which I exist, in which I navigate. The Inosano seminar presentation system has become the curriculum for some schools.
I believe it, because that's what they have, right? That's what they're exposed to.
Yes. You see, now Fortunately for us, in the old days,
I know. Like you, Bert, and Steve
uh-uh,
Brody. I
right?
mean,
Never, never for us. Okay.
you know,
So it's a different setup, right? But I will say that fortunately for me, at just about every seminar, one of the young ones will come up to me and they'll go, okay, what am I missing?
good on them. Good on
And then
them that
we,
they
yeah,
would
and then we
surrender.
could, we
You
could
know what I mean?
start, we can start a conversation,
Yeah.
right? Because some of them are smart enough to realize, oh, wait, yeah, no, damn, this guy met Bruce Lee in 1964. It's now 2024.
Yeah.
A lot has gone on, and a lot of it, I was not there for it. So are there people around who were, and are they actively teaching? Well, maybe I should go check them out.
Before
And,
they, 'cause
you
I'm
know,
telling you, it's a timeline, and that
now,
timeline is,
some of them, of course, for whatever reason, decided to leave the mainland, you know. So now it's real hard to get to them.
yeah.
You know who I mean? Right.
I mean, oh my God. Oh,
I mean,
I know,
I mean, come
if
on, man.
you, I know, but if you
Right.
see where he lives, you go out his driveway,
Oh yeah.
you take a left, and no exaggeration, 100 yards, it's like unreal,
Well,
unbelievable. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
No, it makes perfect sense.
yeah,
And then, right? Because, well, I'm gonna say it this way: because Sarah is smarter than he is, right? He's done exactly what somebody in his literal situation, his literal setting should do, which is to bring it online. That's exactly what he should do.
and I think, and he's done it well, and like you mentioned
Yes.
before, with honesty and integrity, you know,
Yeah.
because I mean, if it was anything but, I mean, I wouldn't obviously be active like that, but yeah, he's a rarity, as you know. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
For sure. For
yeah.
sure.
So we're on 2.5 hours, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, no, it was great. No, it was great. It was great. No worries. No, it was fantastic. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate your asking me to come back on because
Oh no, it was well overdue. It was long overdue. I mean, I wanted to, yeah. Um, I just thought it'd be refreshing, bringing you back on. For a couple of reasons. One, I was kind of noticing in your group dynamic. Two, get your current lens on FMA and your thoughts, and that compare and contrast between the two. So no,
yeah. Well, again, I'm one of those who, like in Asano, saw the common thread, saw the commonality,
mm,
right? And so the two arts, maybe publicly there has to be some kind of a differentiation, in order for people to understand what it is that you're talking about. But privately, personally, integration is it, man. Integration is it.
yeah,
You,
yeah,
you know, because right. I mean, imagine, right? Imagine America back when, if a black guy like me was in love with a white girl and we couldn't show that publicly. You know what I mean?
right, right.
Right? So I mean, that's a little bit drastic, but it's akin to those kinds of ideas. And
Yeah,
I keep bringing up references like that just to illustrate and maybe even underscore what a vehicle for total development Filipino Kali is.
yeah,
Okay, goes way beyond the physical, goes way beyond it's like this. It's like this. And I used to do this type of thing at my school. If you're going to be well rounded as a martial artist, there's only two areas in which you can study. What are
Mm-hmm.
those two areas? Empty hands and weapons,
And weapons.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, right? Because well-roundedness should be a goal. Now, think about this. Using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. Those are Jeet Kune Do quotes. Are those not pointers towards the idea or the concept of well-roundedness?
Absolutely.
Right? There's no way to say, well, having no limitation as limitation, but limiting yourself to just empty hands.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I
Having
know.
no way,
Like, so,
right?
yeah.
Having
So
no way as way, but making sure that your way is just empty hands.
it's
Makes
ironic.
no
They're
sense.
actually contradicting. There you go.
It
Yeah.
makes no sense, right?
Yeah.
So now, if you're going to be well-rounded, so we know there's empty hands and there's weaponry. If you're going to be well-rounded in empty hands, guess what? There's kicking, there's punching, there's trapping, there's grappling.
Yeah.
There's nothing, right? Everything that you can do, technically, empty hands, will fall into those categories. If you're going to be well-rounded in weapons, with the exception of projectiles, right, as in firearms, it's going to be edged or blunt, right? Kali addresses all of that.
And flexible, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, they're cutting himself. Unfortunately, I think they're cutting himself off at the knees. I mean, but
But some of them are decent people, which is why I have fun, even though we argue, discuss, debate, have differences of opinion. Richard Torres and I can have a civil conversation online. I call him for his birthday every year because I'm old school, so I call significant people. Right, I don't send necessarily just send
yeah.
a Facebook message. If I have your phone number, I call you. Right, Bob Landers, the same thing. Right, Paul Bax, the same thing. Because personally, I think I would be a disgrace to my instructor, Dan Inasano, if I got on Facebook and cussed out these guys.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Acting like
You
that's a
see,
whole nother
right? Dan
social
Dan
media
Inasano.
behavior.
If word of that, if Dan Inasano got word that Dwight is on Facebook being blatantly disrespectful, right, to fellow martial artists, he's not going to be happy about that.
Nor
Now,
should he be. No,
right?
that's a
Yeah,
whole nother thing. Like how
and,
do
I, and I'm not saying that he monitors me on Facebook because
no.
he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, but much to your point though, I mean, how to conduct yourself on social media when you're representing somebody, and some of what these people do, it's just god awful, unfortunately. Like there's
Yeah.
no checks and balances. I just know for sure if I acted like that, I mean, I would hear from Burton. Like, and as well as I should, what I mean, if it was acting like that,
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, hey, it was a pleasure as always, and
Well, it was a good change for me to not be in the controlling seat.
yeah. Well, I'm glad we made that happen for you. I know. Isn't it nice when you don't have to? Isn't that like when you go from there and you don't have to like. You can just like, okay, I have my questionnaire.
Yep. All I had to do was to find a provocative T-shirt.
That's it. And
and it so happens that today is a black and white day, so this one was perfect. Awesome. This one was perfect. Yeah, to make my statement, my understated statement.
Awesome. Well, hey, if I don't talk to you, have a great holiday coming up.
Christmas. You too, my friend. You too.
Yeah, and I don't want obviously this to be the last time. So let's obviously.
Hopefully next time I'll have something interesting to still say.
Well, I doubt that's going to be an issue. So no worries there.
Well,
so.
Okay, thanks, man. Thanks, Dina. I hope people got something out of this.
Oh, I can tell you that by the comments. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, my friend.
You take care of yourself.
Take care. All righty. Good one.